Imhotep, the Stormlord, Pharaoh of the Sartek. Order born in lightning, empire balanced on the edge of a war scythe. Imhotep ascends from Mandragora with command codes hissing in the air like rain, the phalanxes around him locking to perfect geometries as if the cosmos itself obeyed his gesture. He was a general, even when flesh still warmed his bones. Precise, unsentimental, intolerant of disorder. The Great Sleep did not diminish him, it distilled him. He took a contested throne with the efficiency of a theorem. On Mandragora, rivals declared by ancient right and newer ambition found their claims reduced to atoms. Gone like the kuvu, the saying runs, a proverb minted by his thoroughness. From that consolidation flowed a campaign of rectification so vast it required a map of sectors merely as preface. More than 80 tomb worlds align beneath the Sartek standard. More than 80 theaters of war move to a single metronome. Imhotep's mind is a mechanism built of probabilities, and probabilities love him back. He calculates outcomes in silent cascades, seeks not the flamboyance of genius, but the inevitability of logic executed to its conclusion. Against such a machine, most foes are statistics waiting to fall within acceptable error. Those outside mathematics, the deranged ferocities of orcs, the caprice of the warp, earn his disdain, not his fear. He adapts, quarantines their irrationality, and crushes the parts of them that can be predicted. His storms are as psychological as they are physical. Banks of sable cloud that bloom with corpse, green lightning, vox, choking static that turns orders to babble, horizons swallowed until the enemy knows only the panic of isolation. When cohesion fractures, he advances like a tide drawn by lunar edict. And then, always then, he makes a ritual of victory, a duel with the enemy's paragon. A hand removed, a helm split, a blade held at the collarbone, while the storm makes theater of the conqueror's restraint. Imhotep does not kill when legend is more useful than a corpse. He releases the humiliated, so that terror may travel faster than his fleets. Yet even a perfect reduction contains a flaw, and his is pride sharpened into policy. He will not yield the immaculate elegance of necrodermis to the uncertainty of flesh's return. When Sarek, the ancient sovereign, unveils his vision to reverse the curse, Imhotep opposes him, not out of disbelief, but because he prioritizes the supremacy of Sartek and order in the present over redemption deferred. In the Pariah Nexus, he strikes at pylon clusters supporting the Silent King's lattice, such as those at Vergoy's Alphic, setting logic against penance and empire against union. He chooses empire now over redemption later, steel over uncertainty, the supremacy of Sartek over the union of all. In his mind, there is no contradiction. To save the Necrons is to place them in the custody of one who has never lost. Thus, the Stormlord strides between lightning and law, unyielding, undefeated, unrepentant. He is the proof that order can be a weapon sharper than wrath, and that fear, curated, is more enduring than flame. Trazyn the Infinite, curator of souls and history. There are vaults that are also mirrors, and Trazyn has made one so vast that the galaxy can see itself inside. On Solemnus, galleries curve beyond Euclidean patience, glittering with prisms that turn stasis into jewel work. Inside float wars that cannot end, because moments have been caged into the perfection of remembrance. Inside stand heroes and monsters, their last breath perpetually suspended, their last thought perpetually rehearsed. Trazyn calls it preservation. Others, less charitable or less aesthetically inclined, call it theft. He is the archetype of the collector whose passion outgrew permission. Dynasts bar their treasure halls when his sigils arrive. Treaties written in diamond dust become, in his hands, invitations to clever larceny. He will trade fairly until fairness proves inefficient, then employ proxies, puppets, and decoy bodies. More than one lord has stood, triumphant, over a shattered Trazyn, only to realize, too late, that his victory belongs in a display case, and the curator departed with the prize that matters. He is neither loyalist nor anarchist. He is devoted to the narrative, the vast unspooling tapestry of everything that ever was. He hears time as a choir and cannot bear a missing voice. This obsession puts him in eternal collision with Orikan's creed. One hoards history, the other edits it. Their feud has the neatness of an equation and the messiness of egos sharpened for millennia. They have fenced with chronology and heist in the same breath, opening tombs whose lids groaned with the weight of a species' grief. Unleashing a star god shard by accident, and then bottling it again with the graceless unity of enemies who need one another for an hour. When Trazyn fights, he does so with the economy of one who dislikes wasted scenes. His empathic obliterator unthreads squads by their shared synapse, a single strike blossoming through bonds like frost. He is difficult to kill because he is elsewhere when you think you've found him. The body you break is a loaned instrument. And if the gallery itself becomes a war engine, he uncorks dioramas into reality, regiments of humans from extinguished centuries, corsair clades, daemon hosts writhing within sigils, orc freebooters bellowing songs nobody remembers writing. He did this on Cadia, turning a catastrophe into a curated delay. He does not wage war, he arranges it. To the living, he is blasphemy in the shape of a scholar. To his own kind, he is a nuisance so skilled that necessity has become his shield. The galaxy's memory is safer in his vaults than in its own careless hands. He consoles himself with this thought as he adds another wonder to the shelves. The past cannot be restored, but in his keeping, it can be made safe from oblivion. That is his mercy, cold and unasked. Orikan, the diviner, master of time's secrets. Once, in a palace that no longer exists except as a weathering on certain stars, a narrow-shouldered cryptek dared to say no to a king. Orikan saw the glittering offer and measured the abyss behind it. He spoke against biotransference and was overruled, dragged screaming toward a furnace that burned souls as clean as ore. He woke in metal and vowed that what he could not prevent, he would command. His study is the firmament, marked with calculations that cross the void like filigree. He reads conjunctions the way a duelist reads wrists. Empires are angles. Wars are waves. The fall of species hums in the intervals between eclipses. His predictions have the disagreeable habit of coming true, and when they do not, he corrects the insult. Chronomancy is theory until it is applied with surgical malice. A dockyard survives that should have died. Remove the Marines who could have arrived in a loop nobody else remembers. A hero triumphs outside the ordained curve. Reweave the moment. Box the deviation in a paradox and drop it into a deeper sea. He is jealous of this power because he knows what would happen if his peers accepted its existence. Necron paranoia is already architecture. Were it to learn that a colleague edits history, it would become a religion. So Orikan moves under the event horizon, leaving few footprints and fewer witnesses. He will fight when pageantry requires it, the staff of tomorrow striking a heartbeat into the future, his body flickering between nows so that a blade that killed him must adjust to the humility of never having done so. Afterward, the air smells of cold metal and violated cause. What does he want? Not the crown, too slow, not the museum, too still. He wants apotheosis, to shed even necrodermis and become a diagram of pure intent, a god of light whose thought is law. He has felt a glimmer of it, wearing radiance for moments stolen from a dying shard. The ecstasy haunts him. Every trap he sets on the time stream, every rival he humiliates, every uneasy alliance he signs with Zarek in the name of averting a catastrophe, even he will not name. All of it is scaffolding toward the hour when the equations sing his name. Oricon believes in fate as a medium. You do not accept marble, you carve it. If the cosmos resists, it is only because the sculptor has not yet found the right chisel. And Racker the Traveler, restorer of lost legions. There are kings who sit, and there is one who walks. Anraker leaves Pyria unthroned and unencumbered, exchanging ceremony for purpose. His oath is simple enough to sound naive. Awaken the sleeping, drive out the squatters, bind what is scattered. He carries it like a standard across star systems, arriving first as a plague upon the looters, and then as the stern benefactor of those he rouses. He asks for a tithe, warriors, and engines, so that the next world may be saved as this one was. Many give gladly. Some pay, because refusal looks too much like ingratitude beneath the gaze of a war scythe. Among Necrons, opinions skew as opinions will. To the noble, he is nobility rekindled. To the jealous, he is a brigand whose rank is merely the force of his character. And Rakir allows both readings to stand. Neither slows him. He would rather the galaxy be offended than the tombs remain blind. In battle, he is not the mathematician Imhotep is, nor the manipulator of time Oricon fashions himself to be. He is momentum. At the head of the Pyrian Eternals, immortals named as much for their loyalty as their design, he drives into the place where resistance believes itself adequate. His signature is theft. Command protocols that creep like ivy into enemy circuitry, turning turrets on their masters, co-opting tanks mid-charge, rerouting orbital fire in the middle of a prayer. Panic is a machine with its own fuel. He merely primes it. He conserves a single arrow made of tachyons and patience, and sends it only when the story demands amendment. A monstrous engine, a monstrous beast, a monstrous hero. The arrow answers, punctuation in the grammar of annihilation. And Rocker's pragmatism confounds those who require hatred to be pure. He has fought beside the young when the alternative was losing everything to something that digests futures. Tyranids do not understand diplomacy, but they understand extinction, and he delivered it by any alliance that would hold just long enough. With Eldar, with humans, he has brokered armistice by necessity, then withdrawn without gloating or apology. In him survives an ethic older than necrodermis, the notion that duty can be a kind of mercy, and mercy a strategy bold enough to scandalize the proud. He walks because there are too many vaults and too little time. He walks because unity is not an argument. It is a series of doors opened before raiders arrive. He walks because he is not done. Nemesor Zandrek and Vargard Oberon, the delusion and the duty. On Gidrum, banners ripple that no wind can explain, and commands are given in the accents of a court whose etiquette was embalmed before most stars were born. Zandrek reigns there, brilliant and broken in equal measure. The great sleep stole a sliver of him that contained the present. He wakes into a reenactment. He sees Necron-tier insurrectionists where others see humans, orcs, Eldar, Tau. He hears the language of rebellion when the Vox crackles with a Space Marine's oath. He spares prisoners for the judgment of a triarch that is both sacred and extinct. He forbids assassins because honor recoils from the blade you do not see. His victories are not illusions. He maneuvers with genius elegant enough to be mistaken for style, his counterstrokes arriving at the precise second required to reframe the battle's logic. Gidrum has prospered because his mind still makes art out of conflict. But even a great artist is mortal, and the galaxy has tried to collect him more than once. Plots germinate in the shade of his delusion. Assassins have written their names in oil and then erased them with their own blood. Because Zandrek is not alone. Obyron is the sword that makes the lie merciful. He is the shadow that arranges the world so that his lord's dream fits it. He kills what must not live, whispers to those who must not speak, and appears where an enemy hoped he could not. He moves through reality as if it were a curtain. One heartbeat he is at Zandrek's elbow. The next he blooms behind an enemy formation like a curse realized. He has beaten legends in the same minute because there was nobody else to do it, and because the math of his devotion leaves no remainder for fatigue. Between them is a love story made out of metal and denial. Zandrek believes Oberon to be exactly what he is, a friend from wars that only one of them still inhabits. Oberon believes Zandrek to be exactly what he was, a lord worthy of a life's protection, even if the life has stretched into something that no longer measures itself in years. They are tragedy and comedy braided, one speaking to ghosts with impeccable courtesy, the other arranging the stage so that the ghosts remember their lines. Many have asked why the Silent King does not remove Zandrek from the board. The answer is that not all liabilities are subtractive. A predictable genius is a fortress. An honorable sovereign whose ambitions are entirely imaginary makes the most reliable of allies. And there is, under the calculus, a tenderness. Even among immortals, there are few chances to be merciful without becoming weak. Leaving Zandrek to his illusion and giving Obyron leave to defend it is the kind of strength that looks like kindness when you are too far away to see the blood. Illuminor Xerus, the twisted technomancer of Xantragora. If immortality is a crime, Xerus drafted the indictment and signed it in the blood of a species. He built the escalators into the furnaces. He refined the equations that mapped flesh into alloy and soul into fuel. He does not repent. Repentance is an emotion. Xerus studies emotions as an anatomist studies nerves, for their utility, not their apology. Xantragora is a cathedral of vivisection where hymns are rendered as readouts. In its depths, armies of instruments sing their monophonic praises to acquisition. The subjects arrive in convoys, Eldar prized for their complexity, humans for their volatile faith, orcs for the oddly translatable resilience of their crude biology. Sisters who burn with belief are of particular interest. Their miracles are data that refuses to format. Xerus is offended by the inefficiency of mystery. He returns to the experiment until mystery no longer resists or the subject no longer exists. His gifts overlay the legions like new definitions, optics that see truer, armor that behaves like a memory of a beast's hide, weapons that erase flesh as if they were evidence of a crime. He sells these improvements for a price that is consistently the same and consistently ghastly. People, dynasts pay because war is a mathematics of inputs, and Xerus makes victory cheaper than scruple. When necessity requires him to collect his own payment, he does so with the contemptuous courtesy of a physician whose clinic has been invaded by the unbooked paralytics in the air. Nets that remember whom they were thrown for. Gates that bloom and fold like predatory flowers. He will explain to the captured what he intends to discover, not because they deserve the dignity of comprehension, but because the monologue clarifies parameters. The screams are a problem only when they interfere with the sensors. He has attached himself to Zyrek's project, not because he craves absolution, but because the math promises revelation. To reverse biotransference is to perform the most difficult calculation in history backwards, in real time, with variables that behave like superstition. The king needs Xerus because genius rarely cares what it furthers. And Xerus needs the king because atonement's road passes through the library he wants to build out of truth. There are things he fears. The Catan are one. He has seen shards unbottle rage and rearrange truth. In their presence, he becomes in a single moment something very similar to humble. But even fear is a reagent. He will distill it until it names its principle. If a soul is a fiction, he will unmask the author. If a soul is a fact, he will list its properties. He is the poem an empire wrote when it decided that empathy was in the way. Zarek, the Silent King, last of the Triarch, bearer of the burden. Before the tombs, before the pylons, before the legions learned to march without hearts, there was a king whose crown weighed more than gold. Zarek ascended to a throne carved out of a wounded people. The Old Ones were an answer that fought back. The Necrontyr died too soon beneath a murderous sun and wanted a miracle more than they wanted caution. Mefrin smiled and offered a door. Zarek opened it. The horror was elegant. Biotransference worked perfectly. Souls poured like wine into goblets that never overflowed. Flesh became what it had always feared it would, obsolete. In the instant of success came the knowledge of its price. Zarek stood at the center of a species he had saved from death by conferring upon it a different one. The command protocols the Catan built into him throbbed like a second heartbeat. He could move a civilization with a thought. He moved it toward revenge. The war in heaven ended because the Necrons turned inevitability into a weapon. The Old Ones broke under the weight of an enemy that could not be made to fear. Victory tasted of ash. The younger races filled the vacuum. Weariness set into gears. Zarek made his second decision. Sleep now, wake later, inherit a quieter sky. Before he left the stage, he made a third. He shattered the leash that would have allowed any future king to make the first mistake again. Then he left, because exile was cheaper than confession. In the dark beyond galaxies, he learned patience larger than the one he had taught his people. He learned that absolution is a pursuit rather than a gift. He met a hunger that had crossed from elsewhere, the Tyranids, and understood that if they ate the future, there would be nothing left to restore to life should the miracle be found. So he returned, bearing remorse as regalia. The Necrons, he found, were what he had designed them to be, resilient and ruinously independent. Tombs had cracked according to schedules and disasters both. Dynasties woke proud and suspicious in equal measure. Some remembered his name as if it were a myth. Others knew it as a threat. He recruited the only loyalists he had engineered to be loyal, the Triarch Praetorians. With them he moved in whispers, guiding, nudging, preventing wars from becoming extinctions. When he revealed himself, it was not to ask permission. He remade the Triarch in an image that could not betray him again, and resumed the labor of shepherding a people who no longer wished to be herded. His vision of redemption is audacious to the edge of blasphemy. Build a lattice that quiets the warp screaming. Pacify the stars until biology can endure. Discover, through Xeris, or through theft, or through miracle, how to call a soul back into a body that can hurt again. The Pariah Nexus was this plan in miniature, field-tested against the universe's contempt. It worked where it could. It failed where rebellion and chaos made a marriage of convenience. Guilliman's Indomitus forces clashed repeatedly with Zarek's designs across the Nexus, the campaign bringing both to the brink of catastrophe. Almost is a metric to which Zarek has grown accustomed. He is not thunder. He is gravity. In his presence, dynasties fall into orbit or flame against the inevitability of a mass too central to ignore. He speaks less than rumor claims, because his silence performs the double task of dignity and mystery. When he fights, the days of dominion carries him like a verdict. Menhirs hum. The Scepter arcs. Praetorians enforce the old code with new ferocity. Around him, the Necrons become briefly what they once were, one will. The feeling is intoxicating and terrible. He does not crave apology from those he harmed. He craves a chance to return to them what he took: breath, pain, choice, even if they refuse the gift. He knows some will prefer metal, will call his quest treason to perfection. He accepts their hatred as part of the cost. Redemption paid in installments is still redemption. Dynasties in convergence. 8 trajectories cross and tangle across the Indomitus Age. Each believes himself the axis around which the future will spin. Each is, in a way, correct. Imhotep counts victory by compliance and carves a calculus that leaves no room for flesh. Trazen captures yesterday, so that tomorrow has a teacher and a jailer. Oricon writes his name in the water of time and dares the sea to hold it. Anraker conducts a pilgrimage of awakening, a chain of rescues, whose links are armies. Zondrek is the dream of a noble age made dangerous by its beauty. Oberon is the oath that keeps beauty from becoming grave. Xerus peels the universe to see whether the soul is fruit or skin. Zarek holds a ledger only he can balance, with columns labeled sin and future, and enters numbers nobody else has the courage to write. There is a particular cruelty to immortality when it is earned by surrender. The Necrons paid that price in full, souls for endurance, warmth for certainty. Yet the bill is still due, interest compounded by time. Each of these lords pays it in a different currency: pride, memory, destiny, unity, honor, loyalty, knowledge, and guilt. Together they make a ledger for a species that refuses to be balanced. The tombs glow with awakening signals. Across the void, the sickly green of resurrection lights the caverns of empires long considered myth. Phalanxes form in lines so straight they insult geometry. Command glyphs spark to life along spinal data trees. The young races shiver, hearing the faintest tremor under their wars, as if something old had stretched and remembered its name. The cosmos will learn the lesson the Necrontyr learned too late, that destiny is a machine, and machines obey those who know their parts. The living tremble, the dead remember, the kings take their stations. From the tomb, they emerge, undying, unyielding, to claim what calculation and patience have always reserved for them. The galaxy was theirs once. In the shadow of their immortality, it may be theirs again. The dynasties rise, and the stars burn cold. If you'd stand with the undying, subscribe, share, and return for the next chronicle of the 41st millennium.